This is the video that explains to you just what being in love is from a philosophical and somewhat mathematical perspective. All right, so here you are having your experience of life. You're seeing the world around you and essentially one perspective on it, which gives you a very flat experience of reality. Similar to, if somebody only has one eye, then they cannot see three dimensions. They see two dimensions, and everything is two-dimensional to them. So they don't have any of the depth that comes with the three-dimensional point of view. You just have a completely flat experience of reality. Not bad, not miserable, not terrible, but it is limited by only having one perspective. You can literally only perceive reality as flat. Now, what happens if you meet someone else with their one perspective, going through experience life also similarly flat? Okay, now what if you two form a relationship? You form this relationship, and the relationship between you, a loving relationship, is an energetic bond. And what you do is you create a hive mind. This is my attempt to draw essentially a brain as a sort of mind. This is a hive mind. So you create the most intimate form of hive mind that people can make, which is, with two people. Two cells of its body, two limbs, essentially got two eyes to perceive the world from. So this hive mind for this romance is now getting energy from each of them. And information from each of them. It's perceiving each of their perspectives go to it. And this is the same way that the brain deals with vision from two eyeballs. Two eyes look out with their own perspectives. They each send their image back here, and then the brain reconciles it into a 3D worldview. So now you've got a three-dimensional view of the world all of a sudden. And that information, that's qualitatively different than two-dimensional, flat, superficial view of the world. It's now a depth of experience that's just so qualitatively different. That's the feeling of being in love. You've now stepped into an added dimension of life. Everything feels different, more alive, more vibrant, deeper. That's being in love. You're now you went from a two-dimensional world to a three-dimensional world. And that feels amazing. You love that feeling. You're in love. That's that place. That's three-dimensional. Now, what did we need for this? Two perspectives, yes, but what else did we need? Well, the perspectives had to be different, because if this person had been here, the female, I'm calling a female with long hair, I know that's sexist, I apologize. If they were the same, you'd actually get the same perspective coming from both of these. And so this would not lead to a three-dimensional view. It would lead to a two-dimensional view. So it wouldn't do any good. So you need different perspectives. Hence, opposites attract. So if 2 points of view are too similar, they're not going to let you get to any significant three-dimensional reconciliation. So you need difference, and that's why opposites attract. But they can't just be any opposites. They need to have an overlapping field of view, right? Because it's what overlaps, it's what they both see that then can be reconciled into the three-dimensional view. So if you have, one here, let's say one here, on opposite sides of a wall, they both look, neither is ever going to see the same thing. There's no overlap because of the wall between them, or perhaps distance between them. Whatever the problem may be, they're just not seeing the same thing. Without any overlap, you cannot get any reconciliation to the 3D view, because it's the overlap part that's being reconciled. So you need opposition, a difference, opposites attract, a different point of view, but you also need an overlapping, and this is shared interests is important for this, that you're observing the same thing in the world. But also you need symmetry. Notice the symmetry here, that all animals with two eyes have them located symmetrically. The symmetry means that there's a mathematical relationship between the information brought in by one and the other. And that mathematical relationship allows this brain to do math, to then reconcile them into a three-dimensional image. There has to be a mathematical relationship between the two. And so there needs to be the symmetry. And how do you know if you have a symmetrical view of somebody, a symmetrical but different view of somebody? That's where you feel like you resonate, you vibe, because the symmetry of your points of view, even though they're different, create a sort of feedback, feeling of resonance. So you vibe with this person, even though you don't see everything the same way as them. So that is, you have some parts of your view in common, right? You have some commonalities, but not all commonalities. That parts of the perspective, like they're both facing forward. They don't have to be opposite in every single aspect. They need to actually be the same in some aspects and different in other aspects in order to have symmetrical opposition. So you want someone with some things in common and some things not at all in common. And now you've got symmetrical opposition and a mathematical relationship, and the perspectives from the two can come in to the mind, or in this case, hive mind, where it mathematically reconciles the differences between these two and comes up with a three-dimensional view, which reconciles both views as being accurate from their own perspective and gives you this new view that's so much more thorough and complete than either by itself. It's so much deeper and more complex that ultimately they both were valid and important. And what you need beyond anything else I've expressed so far is that the two people bringing in the perspectives accept each other's perspective, accept that it's valid, appreciate it, understand it's useful, that you accept it even if you don't agree with it, even if you don't understand it, you just accept it. What they cannot be doing is fighting. They can't be in conflict, having a tug-of-war over whose view is correct. If your right eye and your left eye were having a battle to see, an argument over whether the right eye was showing the true picture or the left eye, that would interfere with your brain's ability to reconcile those images. So as long as these two people in a relationship are fighting over who actually is right and is trying to get the other person to see things their way, you try to get the other person to see things your way, to share your perspective, you're now invalidating their perspective. And therefore, you're invalidating this process that can't happen to get to a three-dimensional view. You need to accept that their different point of view is valid. Even if you don't agree with it, you accept that it's important they have a different perspective. That's the only way you can get to a three-dimensional view, is if you have a different perspective, not the same. You don't want someone with the same perspective. You want someone who brings something different to the table. So accept the other person's point of view as valid, even if you don't agree with it or understand it. Then once you accept each other's points of view, so you don't have a struggle going on here, this is what marriage counseling is for, now it goes into the mind, which reconciles it into the three-dimensional view and gives you this experience of being in love. Now that you're in this experience of being in love, you're now in the three-dimensional world, now both people are in this world. They can now see the reconciliation. They actually can feel and understand. Now they can understand how their 2 points of view reconciled. In this three-dimensional place of love, they can see it. They can feel it. They couldn't at first. They first had to accept each other's views as being valid so they could go here and get reconciled by the higher hive mind. Then the reconciliation happened. Now that they're in this 3D place, able to perceive it, now they can understand the reconciliation. Now they can understand each other. They didn't have to understand at the start. So don't start needing understanding. Start just accepting. And then you can get to the place of love. And sorry for the crudity of the drawing, but essentially that is what being in love is. So good luck with all that.